To discuss this, we're joined in studio by Arnold van Linde, the Executive Chair at Integrisure. Arnold, a very good morning and thank you for coming through.
Good morning, Elvis.
Now, if you look at insurance, do insurance generally cover injury and death as well as property combined? Is there such a thing?
Not combined. You get life insurance for the risk of dying and, of course, other things that relate to that. And then you get property insurance, which is in South Africa called short-term insurance. That's motor, household and business.
Yes. Now, talking about that short-term insurance, in the case of civil unrest, such as the xenophobic violence, is one covered?
Elvis, you're covered if you've got the right cover. A normal policy would not cover you. Normal policy, actually in the South African environment, the normal policy gives us cover for what you cover in the normal policy, but it actually excludes riot and or unrest cover.
But can you be covered for that?
Yeah, for that you've got to take a specific cover.
Yes.
It's called a SABC cover. It's a specific organization, the insurance company, that is state-controlled or owned by the state. And you've got to take that specific extension on an existing policy to be able to have cover for that.
Now, to what extent can one then insure their business in light of the xenophobic attacks? Is that very specific in terms of xenophobic attacks or protest or unrest or that sort of thing?
Protest, unrest, that kind of thing. It came from the 60s, 70s in South Africa, where this pool was created to cover this kind of risk. That is any protest, any unrest. Because you see a mob, that's what we find in insurance, when people protest and they turn into a mob, and we see it now again, there's no reasoning with a mob. The total reason why the protest takes place is sometimes forgotten. And then it just becomes looting and or breaking and or just damaging everything. And that is where this cover will then kick in.
Now, foreigners that are in the country and they have their small businesses all over the place, are they covered or can they be covered?
They can be covered. They've got to have a passport and they've got to have a working permit. Insurance always are on the right side of the law.
Yes.
So insurers also then specifically say if you have a working permit and you're in South Africa, then you can take cover.
So it must be documented.
Yes, and it must be documented. And lots of these guys then have a policy. And then ultimately, of course, can claim from that. Not that cover like that. Cover like that just merely put you in a position where you can start again. But, of course, it can never take away from the hardship that we're experiencing.
Now, let's just go back to SABC cover, because that's very important and a very important aspect in terms of this discussion. It covers you in the case of unrest only and violent protests and that sort of thing. It's not.
That's right. It's specifically for that extension, because South African insurance law says that no insurance company in South Africa may insure you for political unrest and or violence or anything that any losses that you suffer because of that. And that is then covered by one pool, a big pool, which is a very strong pool in South Africa, a very well established insurer called SABC. But you don't have to take that cover with a normal policy.
Why not?
So it's just a choice. The consumer in South Africa always has a choice. So you've got to make sure that you do take that extension. And with that, I always say to people, make sure that you speak to an advisor.
Yes.
Somebody that's going to advise you about that. Because remember, that's a cover not with your insurer where you insure the main business and or the car. It is with another insurer. And for that, you're going to need an advisor to make sure that you're covered. And it's not very expensive.
Yes. Talk to me about that expense, because you say you must have a insurance,
Yes.
and then you have the additional cover.
So you take your business insurance, you take that wherever, with whichever company you want, or you insure your car, and then you will be advised, if you're correctly advised, that you should consider taking the SABC extension on that. That then sits with that, coupled with that, but it's with the SABC insurance company. And you said, okay, so let's just talk about how expensive it is. It's on a motor car, on a motor vehicle, it's less than 10 rand, so it's not per month. So it's not a big amount of money. But of course, the pool is very big, and that's what makes SABC as this government controlled insurer such a very strong insurer. It's a very, very strong pool of money that sits there, that's ready But of course, you've got to participate.
Yes. We've seen vehicles being attacked in some of
yes.
the incidents, and that's very important. Short-term insurance, that's what you do at Integrisure. You cover vehicles, you cover household insurance and that sort of thing. But if you look at vehicle insurance, in this case, when there's a protest, will your vehicle be covered? If you do not have SASRIA cover?
If you do not have SASRIA cover, you won't be covered. We at Integrisure won't sell a policy without SASRIA cover. I'll rather walk away from that. So yes, then you'll be covered. And we've seen some claims because you happen to be in the same area with your vehicle or your business is in that area, and when it's then looted or burnt to the ground, I mean, then you lose everything because your normal policy wouldn't cover you. And that's where SASRIA then kicks in.
So you would advise, as an insurer, that you take out that SASRIA cover?
Oh yes, you've got to take it. I mean, you know, it's like going to the party but not enjoying it. And not that this is a party, of course, but you've got to take it.
How does the recent upsurge in violence really affect premiums for insurance?
And at this stage, Elvis, it's a little bit early to tell. I think we'll see in a year or so. I don't think we've got a very big effect yet, but there is a creeping thing that's busy happening. And if you look at the statistics, you know, we have more protest. Every year we've got more and more and more protest. And the last figure that I saw is that in 80% of protests, there is violence and or damage to property that takes part. And sometimes it runs into hundreds of millions of rand. And that's where you then, of course, need this cover.
General insurance, if we talk about that, fine print is always a problem with some consumers because they found out at the last end there was something that they didn't read in the fine print. What is your advice to consumers out there when they take out a policy?
Elvis, fine print is not something that only exists in insurance. Insurance has a specific side to it that at the time of having had the loss, it's too late to be sorry that you didn't do it the correct way. With anything else, maybe you can still cancel the contract with a cell phone provider because there's small print there as well. With insurance, you've got to do it up front. You've got to decide up front. So we always say, read the fine print. Your right as a consumer is to ask any question. Never think that you are asking a stupid question. And use an advisor. You've got to use an advisor, a professional that can help you with that. You don't go to the wrong people for the wrong advice.
Now, if people want to get in touch with Integrisure, how do they do that?
They can surf us on the web, which is www.integrisure.co.za, and or they can call us. Our call center is a 24/7 one. Can I give you the number?
Yes.
Oh, and if anybody wants to ask, even if you're not with us,
yes,
give us a call. We'll give you the right advice. 0860 055 055.
There you have it. That's, thank you so much for joining us here in studio.
Thank you,
that's Arnold van der Linde, the Executive Chair at Integrisure, and you can call him at number 0860 055 055 or visit them, integrisure.co.za. Well, it's